it's a who's who of a visitors list. Probably the biggest one I can remember in a while. Several 5-stars expected for official visits, unofficial visits. It's a big weekend for underclassmen with several of the top 2021 recruits expected on campus. And so, this is a major opportunity for Alabama, to continue on this recruiting momentum that they've picked up throughout the summer and in the early parts of the fall. We saw them pick up a ton of commitments in June, saw them flip Bryce Young in September, get Jameel Burroughs recently as well. So big weekend on deck, and one, Alabama is going to try to use to its advantage.
It's amazing how much we've talked about the tight end position with you over what seems like the last couple of months. But that's what we're doing. We're going to do it again today because, after Eric Gilbert commits, ironically enough, to the LSU Tigers, Alabama looking to move on, and not a bad fallback plan. In fact, I wouldn't call Darnell Washington, a 5-star athlete out of Las Vegas, a fallback in any way or form. It's his weekend, though, right, to visit Alabama?
Yeah, it is. And this has been a visit that's been expected for since the summertime. They've always been kind of pointing towards the LSU game as their official visit. And this was even, before Eric Gilbert committed to LSU, they were still planning to get back to Tuscaloosa. His camp was from Las Vegas. So, this is an opportunity for Alabama to kind of, get back involved here. Not that they weren't ever really involved, but obviously we all expected Eric Gilbert to be in Alabama's class by this point. So, I think Bama does have some work to do there in his recruitment. But, he's a guy, if you followed, he's listening to everybody. He was at Tennessee this past weekend. He said he wants to play in the SEC. Georgia has been thought to be the favorite for a while. But he's listening to Tennessee. He's still listening to Alabama. He's going to take that official visit, and he's not making a decision until January. So, Bama has some time on his hands to, kind of regroup here. Obviously, they've had him on campus 3 times in the past. He's close with Jeff Banks. He knows the opportunity there is, the playing time opportunity and the tight ends Bama has produced. So, good opportunity this weekend to get him on campus and get him thinking about Alabama again.
And from a defensive line perspective, after the huge haul from a year ago, you got a 5-star defensive end making the trip to Tuscaloosa officially this weekend. There is a 4-star defensive end slated to make the official visit to the Crimson Tide, beginning on Friday. And then even when you talk about on the unofficial visit front, a couple of 4-star, actually it looks like a trio of 4-star defensive tackles that are going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend as well.
Yeah, the official, to start with the official visitors, Zykevis Walker, he's a 4-star defensive end from Georgia. He's, everyone kind of thinks he's trending towards Georgia. I think that's probably fair. In-state school, they've been recruiting him as hard as anyone. But he has been to Bama a couple times. He was at the season opener against Duke, and then he's going to take this official visit this weekend as well. So, Bama's at least got his attention there, and he's been a guy they've liked for a while. Jordan Burch obviously is the headline visitor in terms of rankings, number 1 strong side defensive end in the nation. He recently put out his top 5. I think actually a week ago he put out his top 5. Obviously Alabama made it. He's from Columbia, South Carolina. So obviously, the Gamecocks have his attention. Clemson is actually trending for him on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball. But Georgia, Alabama, and LSU have are also in the mix and are expected to get him on campus for official visits. Bama this weekend, obviously. LSU was last month, and Georgia, I think down the line, will get him back in Athens. So, it's a good sign. He hasn't committed to Clemson or South Carolina yet. That's kind of where he's been trending for so long. This will, I believe, mark his 3rd trip to Tuscaloosa this year. We'll see what happens. The least you could ask for at this point in a recruitment like this is to be able to get a guy like that on campus late, and that's what Alabama is doing. And then as far as the unofficial visitors, it's a big list as well. Jacobian Guillory, a 4-star defensive tackle from Louisiana. He's a guy in the summer that already took his official visit to Alabama, but he said it's Alabama or LSU. He's already kind of narrowed down his finalists, and he's going to announce his decision at the All-American Bowl in January. Amari Thomas, a 4-star defensive tackle from Memphis. He was at one point rated an offensive tackle, but most of the schools now are recruiting him on the defensive side of the ball. Bama's got him on campus a few times, a guy they really like, but I think, he might be trending elsewhere at this point, but, this weekend could change things. McKinley Jackson, 4-star defensive tackle from Mississippi. I think this is the guy Bama's in the best shape for right now. as far as remaining defensive line targets. He's already taken his official visit to Tuscaloosa, and he's not announcing a decision until February. But he's expected back at Bama this weekend. Obviously, that's big. He's been to Bama several times in the past and is very close with the staff. But the only thing to watch in McKinley is he has 4 more official visits to take, and that will all take place in December and January, building up to his decision in February. So certainly something to watch. But I think Bama probably has some momentum there for McKinley Jackson.
Now, we don't have time to go through this extensive list of scheduled or expected visitors for the upcoming weekend player by player, but you can access it right now at BamaOnline.com. Go to the roundtable at BamaOnline.com, and Hank's got this sort of running tally of players, of recruits expected to visit Tuscaloosa this weekend. You can find that great coverage right now at BamaOnline.com with Hank South and Tim Watts and the rest of the crew there. Jace McClellan, I see here, is an official visitor this weekend, Hank, a guy that you've talked about a lot in the past. He is an Oklahoma commitment, 4-star running back from the state of Texas. How does he sort of fit in this thing right now with the potential of Alabama taking a third back in the 2020 cycle?
Yeah, it looks clear that Bama's intent on adding one. They've offered Jahmyr Gibbs recently, and then that they've been pressing for, or they've been at least still, communicating with Zach Evans and obviously Jace McClellan, getting him back on campus this weekend. All signs point to him being pretty solid with Oklahoma, but Bama has kept his ear. He visited in the summertime in June. He has ties to Alabama. I believe Scooby Carter is his cousin. Obviously from that Alito area in Texas. So there's certainly, factors that play into Bama's favor there, and obviously, the need and the opportunity for playing time depending on what Najee Harris and Brian Robinson do after this season. So that's all stuff, I think Jace McClellan is listening to. So we'll see what happens. If it was signing day, I think he would probably stick with Oklahoma. He's been committed there for over 2 years. But official visit late in the process is always worth watching.
Now, the wide receiver position looks like an area where Alabama is in the spot of being able to pick and choose here down the stretch. Already multiple commitments at that position. I see Arian Smith, a 4-star wide receiver from Lakeland, Florida, set to visit officially this weekend. Daislin Worsham, the 4-star who was previously committed to Alabama, backed off that commitment. You have him listed as an unofficial visitor for LSU. Where does that kind of sit right now? I know the Henderson kid visited officially a couple weeks ago. If you had to say there's one guy right now that could fit that perhaps final spot at the position, where would you tend to lean?
Yeah, it's tough. Bama's, they had 2 of their wide receiver targets on campus for the Arkansas game, Kayshon Boutte and Rakeem Jarrett. Arian Smith this weekend, Xavier Henderson back during Ole Miss weekend. I lean, and I've said this for a while, I lean between Arian Smith and Kayshon Boutte as kind of that final piece, depending on if they add 1 or 2 more. If it was 1, I think it would be either Kayshon Boutte or Arian Smith. And I felt that way for a couple months now, as far as kind of where things stand. And, we'll see. Maybe they take, maybe Arian Smith's visit goes great this weekend. They gain some more momentum there. Obviously, Rakeem Jarrett's listening. But, I think it's been kind of a Kayshon Boutte or Arian Smith kind of one or the other for a while. Rakeem Jarrett has made it interesting though, because that, he didn't really reemerge for Alabama until Bryce Young flipped in September. So that's something to watch. And then as far as the Daislin Worsham goes, I think that's kind of, a wait and see kind of thing. He decommitted in the summer after visiting Miami, and I'm not sure kind of where he fits in at this point, but it's worth keeping in mind he's visited Bama every home game this season, I believe, and still obviously has a very close relationship with the staff. So that's a guy we'll be keeping an eye on as well.
Hank, when you're able to get a prime target on campus this late in the process, and we say late in the process, it's only early November, but with the early signing period going in a couple of years ago, it is late in the process these days. I guess to get Philip Webb on campus unofficially, that has to feel like a bonus, because he's certainly a priority guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Bama has a really strong outside linebackers group already committed that they really made a lot of headway in the summertime. But Philip Webb has always remained a priority target. He's really the only linebacker they're pressing for at this point in time. And, there's been one of those recruitments where, Auburn maybe has had some momentum. LSU has had some momentum. Bama even at one point. The more he continues to kind of push back his timeline or say, a decision's coming, we'll see. I'm going to take some more visits. I feel like this one's trending more towards a guy that's going to wait until February. I don't think he doesn't really need to rush. He's not an early enrollee. He's one of these kids that's always going to have a spot at most of these schools that are recruiting him. So, Bama back at Bama this weekend, and then an official visit down the road as well. And so Bama's going to get him on campus at least twice more. Auburn probably twice more as well. LSU has already used their official visit on him and then got him back on campus last month. So we'll see if he gets back to Baton Rouge. But this is one of those back and forth battles that I think Bama could, maybe take a step forward in this recruitment with a strong showing.
As always, great stuff from Hank South, recruiting analyst there at BamaOnline.com. Again, if you want the full rundown, the full preview, and it's going to update throughout the week, trust me, Hank's got you covered. Tim Watts, they have got you covered at BamaOnline.com. If you haven't already, you really need to do it, especially starting this week. Give Hank South a follow on Twitter at HankSouth247. Hank, as always, great stuff. Look forward to the coverage throughout the week there at BOL.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Travis.